Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la.
Meeting of the Acushnet Board of Selectmen. Could I ask all to rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The agenda says we've got minutes of September 25th to be approved. I don't think we have any minutes of September 25th to be approved yet, so we're going to strike that. But is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with that change?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting mail, we have none, I don't believe. I have asked for meeting mail to be brought up and discussed. I mean, resident mail, we've got a couple of pieces we've accumulated, so I just want to acknowledge receipt of various pieces, and we'll try to work those onto the agenda in the coming weeks. I think we need to do that. Our first appointment is at 5:05, continuation from discussion we had at our last meeting. This is a poll hearing, a new poll siting on Middle Road. I know the two of you did go out last time. There were some concerns about the location, to see the location of the poll, and comments on that visit.
It went very well. The reason for our meeting out there was to discuss the safety issue of the pole. And at that time, we had representatives from the resident, representative from Kearsarge, both Mr. Gaspar and myself, and Jim Merritt, building commissioner, as well as Eversource, I believe, and Verizon representatives. And at that time, we measured according to the plan and determined where the pole should be. And we also parked the car at the end of the driveway, and we all sat in it. And we're able to determine the distance the pole should be from the street to give you a clear view right down Middle Road. Middle Road also curves, which helps the sight line dramatically. The way it curves, you can see third mile down the street, at least.
So we're comfortable with the proposed location of the pole after the visit, yes?
I concur with Mr. DeRoche that everything that we've done is exactly the way he said we did it. Multiple people sat in the car for sight line. I even went into the street alongside of my truck, parked at the curb at the pole where it's being measured from. And I had a clear sight from my vision, basically 100 feet away, roughly 100 feet away, to whoever the individuals were sitting inside of the car.
And I sat in the car, Mr. Merritt sat in the car, and the resident in the home, Mrs. Leary, sat in the car also.
We all made sure that there was no issue with any sight line from coming from anybody's perspective. So we had 4 different people, correct? Yourself,
That's correct.
Myself, Mr. Merritt, Ms. Healy, and I went out to the pole, the furthest pole out, where the 67 feet's being measured out from, and I stood right alongside of my truck, basically 3 feet out from the fog line, and I could see the whole vehicle perfectly clear, so I don't believe there's any clear and present danger.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So is there, and I do want to go to the audience for comments if anybody has any, but is there a motion to approve that poll location?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. And further discussion will go into the audience. I know there are people here potentially to comment on that proposed poll location. Any comments from anybody in the
Yes,
audience?
I don't know if you want to hear from the residents first, or I believe they're here as well.
I have no comment. You know, I was from Verizon.
That's correct? Yep.
Everything is in agreement.
Oh, you're in disguise this time, though.
Yeah. Little,
He's not, he's the same as he was at the site visit.
Yeah.
The other guy was,
Yeah.
there was a different Verizon guy here that night.
Hey, Mr. Gomes, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, members of the Select Board, residents of the town of Acushnet. My name is Nicholas Gomes. I represent Deborah Leary of 584 Middle Road. I just would like to re-raise the concern that I discussed with you on December 9th. Here, the specific public safety concern is not with the exact location of where the pole is, but the very fact that we do not know what this pole is being connected to. The disputed equipment pad, which was included in my package to you, is what it is being connected to, but we don't know what is on it, what is running through it, and that is a concern. We basically have a unpermitted project going forward in the town of Acushnet in the form of that equipment pad, because it has not been reviewed by the planning board, and to my knowledge, as I stand here today, the planning department does not have a official plan that was submitted by Kearsarge, but rather he has the photocopy that I received on October 27th from Kearsarge that I then presented to him.
We're going a little bit outside the scope of the poll hearing, though, Mr. Gomes, and
That's satisfactory, and I'll conclude. And here, it's just the fact, again, simply that this is going forward to connect to that equipment pad, and we do not know what it is on it, and we're continuing with our case. That's all.
aware, and I do respect, and I mean that sincerely. We had a lot of discussion about this. I know this is a contentious issue. I think as a board, we concluded a meeting or two ago that this was not something we could interfere in, that we understand that there are potentially suits back and forth, and we understand that the resident's not happy with that pad site, but the pad site, I think, is a separate issue from this pole location. It's all related, but I'm not sure we can use that issue to stop this.
That's fair. And one item I would just like to add is very similar to the Eversource conduit plan that was filed. Neither shows any connection between this pole or that conduit and this equipment pad. So there's a big gap that's unknown
And
and
that's
that has not been presented to this board. And I believe it's unfair, but I will confirm with my client this information and go from there. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
And just, circling back around, I don't think that's within our, that's something we can be involved with. I did speak with the building inspector. The building inspector's comment to me was that he didn't think that the pad was a material deviation from what was originally intended in the project. And I'm just repeating what I was told, but I think this poll hearing is outside of that. This is just citing a telephone pole, and our issue is public safety of that pole location, and I think that's all we're allowed to deal with now. The issues you're talking about relate more to the building inspector and to the planning department, and I know you're pursuing that, but I don't think we should, I don't think we can decide that here tonight, so.
Okay, thank you very much for your time
Mr.
today.
Gomes, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
We got other comments on the proposed pole location on Middle Road?
Can I just ask the Verizon guy?
Yeah, do you want me to approach?
Were you Brian?
No, that Brian Mello was with Eversource.
Brian's Eversource?
Yeah, I'm Rick Foreman with Pike Telecom, and I'm a engineering contractor for Verizon.
Okay. And so you marked off the 3.5 feet in from the
Yep.
curb, right?
Yeah,
Because that's not on what we have in our agenda over here, so I just want to make sure that everything's legit. 67
Yep.
feet in from the northerly.
Can I actually come up to you guys? I have an updated sketch height.
You were here before, right?
Yeah, I was at the front.
This one, yeah, more beard.
Yeah, so see, this is an updated sketch that was submitted to Verizon. So it's showing the 3.5
Good.
feet off the curb. And then I even drew in this line that probably should have been added to, is it Miss Leary? Is that who
Yes, it is.
Her driveway and the access road is,
Okay,
poles
great.
39 feet
39 feet from the end
from
of
the,
the
yeah.
driveway.
Because I know that was a concern, was
Yes,
that
it was.
the pole was right at the corner of the driveway, and
Excellent.
we saw that when we were out there, so.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent.
You guys can have this, or I can have an updated copy sent to you.
You have extra, it's all right, this is fine, this is better than what we originally got. Can we have this so we can attach it to?
Yeah, absolutely. One should have been sent from Verizon, I just don't know, maybe they didn't send it over to you.
That's fine, we'll just put it on record.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick.
You're welcome.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Old business, we've got an updated report of the comprehensive waste management treatment plan. Mr. Menard and Silva here to talk about that. welcome.
Basically, kind of looking, talking with Wood and Curran, we're looking to get the draft to be filed, so I guess the board has to vote on that, right, Kath, to have it filed, so we can get it filed through MEPR, and from there, it goes through the comment.
Yeah,
Process
before we talk about the, what you all received, which was our numbers, we actually have to have a motion for Woodward and Curran to file the CWMP with MEPA. And then if we can do that tonight, they can go forward and then put it in the environmental monitor for January 8th. And it's got to go through comment period through all those groups of people that receive it. And that would give us final approval on February 14th for the CWMP. This doesn't mean we go forward and we have to actually put the sewer in or anything. It just means the CWMP has been filed. We've done our due diligence with DEP, and it will be good for 10 years, I assume. But we need to have your okay to go ahead and file this.
Big question, though, and
Yes.
this one's important. Have you reviewed, and I saw it, I've not reviewed it.
Yes,
Dan and I
both of
reviewed
you.
and read the entire thing, and then we sent in
Our
our
comments,
edits and
there
our
was a couple
comments.
things that we
Okay.
had to have edit, and it was.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff you all understand,
Yep.
and
And we've
I just
received
want to
back-
be,
Yes,
Yep.
no, we received back ours, to our changes were incorporated to what we said we wanted it to be.
Okay.
And I'm 100% okay with it.
I
Me
mean,
as
we've
well.
hired engineering professionals, we've paid them a lot of money, we've got
Yep.
professional staff in the town that do this. I just, and we just talked about a plan recently that we got, and we looked at it and said, these numbers are all wrong, we don't have this money in our budget. I
Yep.
don't want this happening here. If we're
Yep.
putting this forward and saying,
And this is
we
really, like I
we
said, it's
want to
not
adopt this
saying.
plan, I want to make sure we're comfortable with the plan.
Oh,
We're ready to
definitely,
implement.
definitely what they have there, we're definitely comfortable with it. And again, this ain't telling us we have to do this is just filing it. And so now, if we do anything, it's good, we got a 10-year plan, it's already gonna be filed with DEP and everybody, so there's gonna be no issue, so it's just, that's basically what it is, guys.
So, Mr. Gasper.
So we, twice I've heard 10-year plan. When Rosemary was on Council on Aging floor, we discussed this as the comprehensive wastewater management plan would be a 20-year plan. So is it 10 years or is it 20 years?
I took this as 10, right? 10 years.
But I mean,
But
we'll
it could be up to 20 years.
it could be 20 years.
It could be up to 20 years.
That's all I'm saying, is
yeah.
just Rosemary said
If Rosemary
20
said
years,
that, then I
when we
believe
passed the
that.
CWMP, it was a 20-year plan. It's good for 20 years. I just want to make sure that nothing's changed. And when you guys talk about different things being changed,
Yep.
as Mr. Cabral had stated, I don't think any one of the members of the board have fully been through this comprehensive way. I've been up to date with it, with
Yep.
Ms. Silver, and yourself, Mr. Menard, being kept into the loop and on all these issues, right? But, trying to read it word for word and everything else, I think is beyond.
A lot of the plan was to do with like flow calculations
Right.
and all that stuff,
Right.
so that's basically mostly what it was.
And once we file it, that grace period that we're talking about, that's for other agencies or
Yes.
perhaps anyone that can make comments, and it's like a comment period, right? For other
Exactly.
people to look at it and maybe scrutinize it and give
Right.
feedback, and if there's hangups, we'll go back, the engineering firm would go back and address those
Right.
concerns and bring that back in front of the board or discuss it with the board, saying, someone raised an issue with the CWMP, this was the issue, we resolved the issue, we're moving forward still, and it's good to be filed, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Did you, and I want to keep this moving forward, so
Yep.
I'm ready to
think that's-
endorse anything that keeps moving this forward.
Yep.
Again, provided we're.
And again, I don't know how long that, well, you said, what, February, by the time that even
Right, if
happens,
we
and
have
that's if there's no
approval,
issues.
if we have approval tonight from the board, then it will take until February 14th for it to be finalized. And
That's fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll talk more once we get to the financial plan that you have.
Yep.
And you want to talk about that tonight as well, or?
yeah,
That's, I'm here if you guys want to talk
I'd
about
like
it,
to
that's
just,
fine.
yeah,
This is-
overview.
I
Do you want to do a
yeah.
vote on, what is it, what's
We
the
need
vote
to-
you need?
It's to file the draft
CWMP.
file CWMP with
MEPA.
MEPA, MEPA.
Mass Environmental
Protection
Protection
Agency.
Agency. Can I get a motion to that effect, gentlemen?
So moved.
Mr. DeRosa,
And
second.
I'll second.
All right, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Go get them. So, all right, why don't you talk, I think this is helpful, because this is, you've given us some information on a preliminary estimation, what we're calling Area 2, Priority Area 2, which is
Correct.
actually Priority Area 1 now, is 319 homes
Yep.
in the town of Acushnet, and for us to do this internally, you've estimated what your costs would be. So could we
Correct.
maybe go through it quickly?
And, yep,
We're
I
early
mean,
in the
again,
process.
this is all based on Woodward and Curran, again, which was in that CWMP, which is part of like flow calculations. A lot of it was lengths in pipes and how many feet of pipe. This is all, I didn't put this up. Without a regular plan in front of me, and like the manholes I put in, just estimating, you're gonna need one at every intersection, and you need them at least every 300 feet, and that's, again, we don't have a plan in front of us, so this is, again, an estimated plan as well. And everything is based off what Woodward and Curran gave us through that CWMP. So if you put it up, it's actually roughly 27,000 feet of pipe that has to be laid in that phase.
Now, this phase starts on Nice Lane, or is it at the corner of Nice Lane and Middle Road?
Well, that's where, it'd be starting actually at where the police station is now.
Correct.
That's where it starts, and we'd be ending it around where the library is, right at the library in Nice Lane.
Okay, because we had some discussion about paving Nice Lane, and we were saying the sewer, does it go up Nice Lane? Is that
Well,
anticipated, or?
this, a part of their plan, they showed us, which, that's another thing we definitely gotta work out with Woodward and Curran and see, because part of that Nice Lane, I guess where the lines are on their maps, where we get all the different areas, part of Nice Lane is part of 2, and the other part is part of 3.
Okay.
But in my opinion, you're already there, you're gonna rip it up, let's just go, it kinda stops, where, Mike Chopper's parents' house is on Nice Lane, I don't know if you guys were at it. Well, that's where the kind of line stops, and I'm like, why would you stop it up to at least Cox? Because right now we have Kirtland Sewer in Randall Street. All in that area, you've got Kendrick that has it. Cox does not have it, so like some of it you can still pick up, and I think gravity can still go into this phase. So it might add the number of homes in it, or you deduct the number of homes and do not go up Nice Lane. That's my opinion, you know what I mean? So where they drew up the lines, how they drew up them lines, I'm not, where they came up with that, but that's...
No, that's...
I think that's the kind of decision we need to make on the fly, not on the fly.
Well, I mean,
The
before,
kind of decision on the
before,
ground to
well, this is gonna come when
make
the
this more
plan comes,
efficient.
when the plan comes ahead in front of us, and we're gonna say, well, this is where, Kathy's actually already been working on how many homes are part of this.
I mean,
This
319 houses, I don't want to quote that number anymore, because I've been going through house by house by house to look at, number one, do they already have sewer? Because some of the lists that they have, that Woodward and Curran gave me, they already have sewer, and they did not realize it, so I have to let them know, okay, you have to remove
Yeah.
some of these houses. And that's when I was talking, when Dan happened to walk in tonight, I was at the point where I was on Nye Lane, I'm like, well, Dan, why are we stopping halfway? Are we going all the way down Nyes, or are we not even gonna start Nyes? Because it's crazy to, to stop right at 176.
And again,
I'm
the
like,
If
line,
we go-
is the phase, that's phase 3. That's
Right.
actually phase 3.
We could stop it, we could
You
just,
could
we
do-
could
that's what I'm
just
saying, I
stay
wouldn't
up
think-
Middle Road and stub Nice Lane.
Yes.
Correct.
Instead of doing, that'll be for the board to discuss, we'll see, we'll weigh different
Correct.
things out in the future, but, if we're gonna go up Nice Lane, then you have Pine Street, Pine Drive, that little
Yeah,
neighborhood over
Birch,
there, which is
Birch,
like
all that
50
stuff.
houses in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Right.
saying, so if you're going up, you might as well just
So,
go
it's
up.
a-
I can't see stopping at Choppers, is my opinion. You're gonna do it, you might as well just go up the little extra. Now you get, like you said, you're gonna have Pine and Birch and all them that
Right.
are over there as
Probably a
well.
good
Right.
30, 40, 50 homes in that one neighborhood.
So again, that's when it comes to the
Figure it
plan
out.
phase, and again, the estimate will change again on that, but it's gonna be a little more houses, and which might bring the cost down as well, so that's something, again, we should
That's
discuss.
what we should be looking at.
Yep.
Is it gonna lower costs or is it gonna drive costs up? We'll look into that, so,
Yep.
we got time.
So
Yep,
right now, if we eliminate Nyes Lane with it, Woodward and Curran was adding them, and that's just taking 8 houses out.
yeah, it's only
So
8
not
on
that
that,
big of a
yeah.
deal.
So really, I don't think that's gonna affect that as far as this phase, but,
And your preliminary cost estimate with 319, well, we don't want to use that number anymore, but just set by
It's not gonna change, I mean,
$17,000 is the assessment, would be the assessment
and
per
again,
house.
this is a little high too, because the engineering cost, again, we haven't had no discussions with Woodward and Curran.
Yeah.
These engineering costs were actually originally from that $15 million plan to do, out, not in-house. That was the money for doing it out, going out to bid for the job, the project. So them are the numbers we copied after you offer her. Her paperwork was saying that we're sending it out. This was nothing to do with in-house work, this number here, so.
So,
We definitely got to discuss that with them, and I'm assuming it would definitely be a little better than what that is.
so first of all, I want to commend you and Ms. Silva for your work on this, because if I come down to this subtotal construction costs, is which part you and Ms. Silva work together on, right?
Yep.
And you divide that, and I know we're not saying 320 homes, but whatever it is, it's gonna be give or take a few homes. So let's go off what we really have in front of us, because that's what my math's based off of. It's $6,800 is the average cost per home for our construction costs. That's phenomenal.
That's without the engineering.
That's without the engine. So I said, as far as construction, that's Mr. Menard and Ms. Silva's work. Mr. Menard just alluded to the big elephant in the room for myself, and I think for this board, is
Yep.
we're looking at, when I got to that number, and I broke out the numbers, $6,800 per home, that's phenomenal. Then I get to the engineering, they got an engineering, design, bidding, ineligible for funding, we know that. Then they got engineering, construction services. Both of these numbers are $1.1 million, just over that, okay?
Yep.
That seems like an exorbitant amount for 320 homes, 4.3 miles of pipe.
Again, I think a lot of that, Kevin, was based on the construction services, which would be overseeing the project, which a lot of that, I'm gonna be overseeing the project. They don't need to be out there. Like, if you put this out the bid, usually, like the director or anybody, I'm busy doing other things. I'm not gonna be sitting there overseeing the project, where you usually have an
You'd have a
engineer
project
out there
manager.
with these contractors,
Sure.
shooting grades, they're marking out things, getting all the, to put a plan together for an as-built plan.
Right.
So, I think a lot of that costs, which again, we didn't discuss this with them at all, would be
Right.
part of that,
Yep.
which wouldn't be there, you know what I mean? So
Right.
without
I'm
really talking,
just making
discussing
sure
it,
everybody at
yeah.
home, we mentioned the number, it's just under $17,000,
Yeah.
your number, in-house number, we talked about it at the Council on Aging meeting, the CWMP meeting, and I said, I'm more comfortable getting a number from our staff, and that's what you've done. You've brought a number that's much better than what we were presented from an outside firm. First of all, that number was up near $40,000 per household, okay?
And-
So now we're at talking $17,000. The engineering fees, I would ask that this board, I think it's our duty as a board to make sure that we best represent these residents, and we put it out to bid, the engineering. I understand that's not part of procurement, we don't have to put it out to bid, but to keep everybody honest in this game, I think it's best to get 3 proposals, not saying that we have to use any one of the above, and not saying that we're not using the engineering firm that's been doing this,
Yeah.
but I think it keeps everybody honest in the game, and we best represent our taxpayers when we have this practice, right? And I know there's upsides to keeping the engineering firm, that I'm not trying to say we're not gonna use it, but I think to keep everybody honest and drive this number to where it needs to be, that's where we're gonna get our best bang for our buck. I think these numbers will significantly decline once that process takes place. What's your
And
opinion?
again, even just without me talking to them, I'm sure it will too, Kevin.
Okay,
You're just gonna be careful with that, with firms, and, Woodward & Curran is a huge firm.
I got it.
I'll just give you a little hint, I use other engineers, I've got smaller firms that I'm dealing with now on small projects, and it's taken for months for something that's really not that big of a deal. It should be done
I understand.
in
I
a short
understand.
amount of time frame. Just to give you a heads up, I mean, you gotta look at all the options, and these people are aware of everything. I got all these numbers, because they, they did the homework and stuff on most of it, so you're gonna look at all aspects of it, and they're in with the DEP, and they got everything, approved through them and everything else for somebody else to come in. I don't know if that's gonna be an issue, but again, it's,
There are larger
Yep.
firms that do the same line of work.
Yeah, I agree.
Current are in with
Yep.
DEP, so I would like for a good practice for the board,
Yep.
is to put it out to bid and see what we get. Nobody says we have to accept it, because it's
Yep.
not subject to the procurement laws, is that correct, Mrs. Peter?
It's exempt, yes.
So we're not subject to take anybody's bid, lowest bid, highest bid, all that other stuff. It's just something, it's a good practice for us to go through, so we can tell the people that we've done this for you.
yeah, especially when you're into that kind of money,
Right,
correct, yeah.
and then the next elephant in the room, and I'm sure that this is, because I know that I drew a line across the sheet where your work was at play, and then I would, based on what I've seen in CWMP, is the $1 million in contingency, right?
Yep.
So if we look at that number, it's over 20% for a contingency, and most projects that I've seen, including the police department and project managers and engineering firms, would usually retain 10 to 12%.
Yeah.
And this is over 20%. The number that they threw at you?
Well, no, this is kind of, for us, the contingency for us, again, without a plan from you, Kevin, I'm coming up with some numbers, but there might be more manholes, there's actually a piece of equipment I need to get this job done if we're gonna do this, you know what I mean? That could come out of that, which I'm not putting in, you know what I mean, to this figure, you know? It's an asphalt zipper, you know what I mean, but I just checked on prices for them, they're $200,000 for the piece of equipment, and that's just to cut the road, the trench, so you're not saw cutting all these miles and miles of asphalt. Then you're gonna dig the asphalt where this will grinds it all up, so.
Yeah.
You know, so that's stuff should be in here, and it should be part of this project, because that's gonna be part of the job, doing that job.
So
you
let's
know?
stay on that, because you have a flashing sign up here too for like 35 grand, so.
Yep.
If we're gonna talk about equipment, right?
Yep,
I think this board needs to have some consideration that if you're gonna buy a piece of equipment that's gonna be used for this project, it's gonna be used for future projects. I don't think all
Correct.
the expense can be burdened on the 320 users. We have to figure out a way to disperse that expense.
okay, I agree with that.
Okay.
Because this could be used on water projects, it
Right,
could
the
be
machine.
used on future.
If it's gonna be
yeah.
things that we're gonna use in the town all the
Yep.
time, we'll figure out a percentage maybe, and we'll
Yep.
figure it into the cost of this project, but to fully fund it from one project and go to another phase 3 years down the road, they're not having burdened with that $150,000, $200,000 cost, but it was burdened to the 320. So there's different ways to
No, I agree with
allocate
you on that.
funds.
Yep.
And I just wanna be careful on what we're doing and
Yep.
how that machine's gonna be used in the future. It's not like a rental.
I mean, again,
it's a
that's
purchase.
why I put that million in there, it's so, you know, if there's other ways around it, that definitely could come down. I just didn't wanna, again, this is a preliminary number for all you guys, and
First step.
nothing.
Are there other
Nothing in
action
stone.
items we need tonight, or is that the vote that you needed?
But the
Yep,
vote
just
we
to
need,
keep
yeah.
the ball rolling, that's all we
I
have to
just,
do.
I
Yep.
want to, absolutely, so I'm happy
Yep.
that we've started to rough some numbers, and
Yep,
whatever support you need from this body, I mean, please let us know as quickly as you can, because if there are things we have to do at town meeting this coming spring, we need to get that stuff lined up soon, because budgets are going to be done shortly if they're not already being drafted, and articles are going to be drafted shortly thereafter, and we
And
do
again,
want to
like-
keep this, we do want to keep this moving. Mr. Gasper?
So, we need to talk about dates, and I know that we all thought we might do this different than town meeting and everything else, and it should be done different than a regular town meeting, right? So 75 people from the other side of town aren't stuffing sewer down somebody's throat, right? However, after having a conversation with Ms. Hebert, we're in the process, because we had mentioned that a possible use for the MVP grants would be sewer. And we're applying for grants for the planning stage of that, and there's
Yeah.
multiple facets of that planning. And then what's gonna happen from there is we have to be approved for the planning portion of it. Somebody from the state is designated to come down, or firms that are approved that come down and do this with the town, right? Would work with you folks, conservation, building, all that stuff, planning. Figure out what the needs are for the community as part of that planning process. Once we're designated as a MVP community,
Yep, so once the planning stage is done, and they approve our plan, we become a certified MVP community and we can apply for action grants.
so there lies the big elephant in the room. We talked about the engineering fees, and regardless of what I'm gonna say, we still need to do our best to lower the number, because it might work off a percentage of the number or full fair cash value of the number, whatever it's gonna be, so we gotta get the best number we can. So once I found out more about this MVP grant, it is eligible for design and engineering. So we could be, Ms. Hebert told me today, actually, that she has seen some communities get up to 1.5, 2 million?
You can get up to 2 million.
Up to $2 million. So that's huge.
Yep.
So I think the board will discuss this in the future, we'll talk about this again, but I don't think that timeframe probably won't land until maybe the fall, let's put it the fall. Okay, so I don't know if we're gonna be running off to town meeting at any time soon, because I hate to do that and have that expense burden put on the taxpayers when, if we are eligible, we do go through the planning process and we become an MVP community, we're eligible for significant money in engineering costs for this project. That would be huge, and drive costs dramatically down. So every $150,000, I did a quick calculation, there's every $150,000 we bring this project down, it's roughly $500 off each betterment. That's huge. So we have a huge opportunity to continue to drive this $17,000 number, albeit I think, as good as I think that number is, we have a lot of opportunity that possibly this board and our employees can help drive this cost significantly lower, and I think that's really the goal.
Just if I can follow up on that. So when Mr. Gasper and I were talking, we talked about the MVP grant, and so they only have open periods in the spring around March and in the fall around September. So I know originally when we were kind of all discussing how we're gonna do this and, have a separate special town meeting, so that only the residents who are impacted would be able to vote. I think originally we were all thinking it would be quicker, but in talking to Mr. Gasper about the MVP grant, we're not gonna be able to get certified as a designated community by March, and you have to get that certification before you can apply for the action grants. So that kind of opened up, all right, so now we're looking at more like September. September is a good goal for us. We haven't even heard back that we are approved for the planning grant, but it's not competitive, so we will get it. But once that kicks back, say it's January 1st, that gives us 9 months to get the planning completed, and to become a designated community so that we can then apply for that action grant. So it does give us a little bit more time if that is what the board would want to consider, instead of kind of rushing toward things, putting it off a little longer to see if we get that grant that
Yeah, absolutely.
would drive costs down
Weren't there
significantly.
some preliminary approvals we needed, though? We needed approval, town meeting approvals to submit something to the state. I thought they had talked about, there were things that needed to happen at this, not necessarily even specific project approval or
So in order to
just town
borrow.
approval.
Yeah, so
Right,
so this project would be a borrowing.
Yes.
There's no doubts about that. It's a significant amount of money. So we would have to go to a town meeting to initiate any kind of borrowing.
Okay.
Um,
I thought there were other approvals we needed to get at
So I know
town
that
meeting.
the borrowing would be through the state force account.
Yeah.
So we would have to apply to be a part of the state force account, but I think in talking to Rosemary, she seemed to think that we met all of the criteria. So even though they can't say we qualify, we have a good chance of qualifying for that program.
I think we have a real good opportunity to be awarded a significant amount of money as far as the engineering costs go for the sewer project because of what we talked about with the CWP, the estuaries and everything else. The state's gonna look and the DEP's gonna look down on that and say, you know what? We can make a big impact by doing this. I think it's a no-brainer. We're a coastal community. We have that going for us in some ways and against us in other ways. I wouldn't want to pass that opportunity up. I would like there's no rush to do this. There's really not. As we got to keep the ball rolling,
Right.
Yep.
that's fine. But I mean, damn, if we can knock off, I just said
I mean, we're gonna need
150.
some time for public outreach and everything.
Oh, absolutely. And look,
It's gonna-
17 number that we got here, even though I think engineering could come down and we could be at, let's call it 16 or 15.5, whatever it is, Dan, we leave contingency alone.
Yeah.
Great job with your numbers, and thank you very much for that. You know what you're doing, I'm very confident, as I said it, but when we look at the overall picture and we look at this MVP grant, free
Oh, yeah.
500, 700,000, maybe $1 million, that's huge, and I mean, let's not blow this up like we're gonna take $3,000 off the project, but man, $600,000, man, you're talking $2,000 right off that, if you got 600 in a grant, bang, that's phenomenal.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So-
And again, this ain't gonna happen overnight regardless.
No.
Again, this was rough. You can just keep the ball rolling and we'll.
It's
we'll go
good, it's
from there.
good stuff, I mean, this is a lot, that's a lot happier number than what we were presented before, right?
Correct. And then, but I mean, in Woodward and Curran's defense, that them are other towns, they're doing other towns, and they didn't just give you the numbers, Other towns and communities, again, that are going out to bid, are paying anywhere from 35 to 42, I think she said, something like that. So that's going on now, that's not, you know what I mean, that the communities they're dealing with now, so.
That's why I
Just
said.
saying, that's why
great
in-house is a
job.
big difference, and I don't think we're gonna be able to beat that, so.
Good stuff.
All right, let's keep moving.
All right.
Thank you.
You
Thank
guys
you.
have a good night. Thank you.
We get an executive session tonight, so I'm trying to.
Okay.
full agenda. Town administrators report.
Yeah, I just had a couple quick things.
Okay, Merry Christmas. Yeah, Merry Christmas.
The first thing was the update on the act exempting all uniform positions in the fire department from civil service. I just wanted to let everybody know that we did get approved for that last week, so it's been a burden on the fire the budget for the fire this year because until we got approved to officially be out of civil service, we weren't able to fill that final full-time position. And we weren't able to have it covered by part-time officers, so full-time officers were getting a lot of overtime covering the shift. So this was a big moment for us to finally get that approved. It's been waiting for months, so we have that. Another thing I wanted to mention, the meeting last week, Chief Gallagher talked about PJ Keating, and he put a clip of that part of the meeting up on his Facebook page, and he received a bunch of comments, and we've had a lot of views on it, kind of getting the public outreach for the PJ Keating issues that are coming up. And one of the comments that he had on Facebook was relating to something that you've talked about before, actually, Kevin, where the vehicles are stopping on the state road in front of the Dunkin' Donuts. And so certain residents were complaining about that a little bit and, you know, stating that there are signs there, but they're faded and there aren't as many signs up as there were before saying that there's no parking on the road. So where it's a state road, we do have authority to file something with the state.
District 5.
District 5, yeah, so Chief Gallagher actually drafted a quick response if the Board of Selectmen is okay with sending something out to the Director Perry, just letting him know that we have this issue and asking if they can do something about the signs.
Do you want to vote?
If you guys would like to, yeah. that would be-
What am I voting?
The signs, no parking signs?
Requesting they install no parking signs on the sides of, South Main Street.
Right.
Yeah.
To at least do something about that issue in the meantime.
Yeah,
Okay.
so moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Awesome.
Aye.
The last thing I have, it's Chief Gallagher's night. Just to let you know that they did get a grant. We had applied for a firefighter turnout gear grant program. The state awarded $2,500 about to help purchase new firefighting gloves and protective hoods for the members. And the new hoods and gloves help improve the safety of the staff because the clothing comes into regular contact with possible carcinogens. So
Okay.
it was a good thing he got this grant. So he's all over my reports.
All right.
But that's all I have.
Anything else from Seaver?
No, that's it.
All right. Any selectmen announcements?
Yep.
All right.
See where this was
We could, yes, sure, go ahead.
Well, we just,
Like to sing?
as behalf of the board, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, we'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a safe, Happy New Year.
Same, thank you. Yeah, our next meeting is Tuesday, January 7th, so we're going to give them a break from us for the holidays. Through the holidays, so Merry Christmas with that. All right, so could I get a motion to go into executive session under General Law 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, town administrator, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining and litigation position of the public body, that's us, as the chair so declares, and I do, and not to return to public session.
So moved.
Second.
Second, roll call vote, Mr. DeRoche.
Yes.
Mr. Gasper.
Yes.
And I am a yes. We are adjourned into executive session, not to return into open session. Thank you.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la, la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la, la 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 la.